Hey, this is my review of the Sound City documentary. I've always wanted to make one of these ADHD jump cut edit videos, so here we go. Dave Grohl starts his narration with, "When you're young, you're not afraid of what comes next. You're excited by it." And that's a very good takeoff of this documentary and why he made it and how it changed his life. After Dave Grohl's introduction, the interviewees then talk about Sound City's physical aspects, like how dirty it was, how it never changed, and if you went to it a decade from the last time you were there, it would still look exactly the same. Really funny stuff. All the famous bands that recorded at Sound City are rattled off. I mean, the list is ridiculously big, and they put this in a big montage. It's a really cool sequence. The studio owner then gives his account of Sound City's early history. Then everybody talked about the studio owner and, their opinions of him and how he worked and how the studio got started and became successful, things like that. Then it's on to the big bad mixing board, the Neve board, the Neve brand, what it looks like, what it sounds like, how it works. And I really think it lays it out very well for people who don't understand studio terms, have never been in the studio. Really cool stuff, and it's a big focus of the documentary and why Sound City sounded so good, because only 4 of these mixing boards were made in the entire world. The very first band that was recorded with that Neve board, Buckingham Nicks, the precursor to Fleetwood Mac. Then they gave a little business tip. This guy who was involved with the LA club scene got 10% referrals from bands that he sent to the studio. Then they talk about Sound City's drum room and really how you can record guitar or vocals anywhere, but the live room and how it makes drums sound matters a lot. The drum room used to be a Vox amp factory, and really nobody designed it, and they got lucky with the way it sounded. It sounded great. Sound City felt like family, like a hangout spot. There was no frills, there was no effects. It was a live band tracking to tape, and if you sucked, you sucked, and you had to record over. If it took 100 takes, so be it. The front desk women. This is one of my favorite parts of the documentary because they talk about just how hot the girls are and how they would record background vocals for some of these big bands that would come through, and just how, they felt about Sound City. Both of the women who were there, I don't know if there was any more, but 2 of the front desk women talked and gave their accounts about how Sound City was. One of the studio runners gives his war stories, and they talk about other Sound City employees and how they went on to do really great things in the music industry. Another cool part of the documentary was when they talked about the big name producers that came in the studio and really what producers really do, because the word producer is thrown around so much that, it's meaningless unless it's defined, and they give a few war stories, which is always cool. Then they talk about Rick Springfield, which really helped put Sound City on the map because he had a #1 hit with Jesse's Girl. Then the mid-80s come. Compact disc is released, synthesizers, and drum machines. Sound City starts to suffer. Sound City was this close to going out of business, and then this little band called Nirvana came along. I love this part of the documentary because I'm a huge fan of Nirvana, and they talk about their experience at Sound City, and Dave Grohl basically just says, "Look man, these 16 days and this mixing board changed my life." After Nirvana went to #1, they were getting calls left and right. Rage Against the Machine recorded their first album there. They said they recorded it just like it was a live show. They brought friends and family to the studio, and they got 50% of their album cut in one night. Then Pro Tools came along, and Sound City didn't want any of that. They were a tape-based studio. You knew what you got when you came to Sound City. They refused to get Pro Tools. Then the depressing part of the documentary starts. Pro Tools killed tape. Tape manufacturers went out of business. Budgets started getting smaller. And they don't say it, but the truth is, music piracy, the internet, people's ability to rip CDs, absolutely destroyed budgets. They had to sell some of the gear off in Studio B throughout the 2000s, and then finally in 2011 they had to close the doors permanently. Another cool part of the documentary is when Dave buys the Neve console and then moves it to his studio. They show a time lapse of that, which is really cool. Then the last portion of the documentary, the musicians who recorded at Sound City all collaborated on new music at Studio 606. And I think it was a great way to wrap up the documentary. It was a surprise to me. I was kind of like not getting bored because it was so well cut, but I was kind of like, all right, we're talking about the studio too much. Where's this going? And you know, it goes from music that we've all heard to new stuff sounding just as great as everything else that was run through that Neve board. And you know, I think if you are a music lover, and I don't know many people who don't like music, but if you're somebody who records, engineers, and plays, or really just is a fan of music, you'll love this documentary. I definitely give it a thumbs up. I give it 2 thumbs up, but I think Siskel and Ebert, or Siskel and Roper, have that copyrighted. So 1 thumbs up and one big toe up, and I gotta cut my nails, I know. But this has been Adam from Real Home Recording.